For the first time since 2009, 17 units are available for pronghorn hunting. Bruce Stillings, big game biologist, will share more in this week's webcast. I'm Mike Anderson with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Bruce, how many licenses for pronghorns this year compared to last year?
So we're going to be issuing 1,965 licenses for the lottery this year, and that's up 245 licenses from last year.
Okay, and you guys just finished your aerial surveys. Obviously you found animals. What did you find?
We did. Overall, the state population's up about 5%, which is a good sign. Overall, we're up, but there's certainly some areas, some management regions, some hunting units that population is down considerably, and we did adjust licenses accordingly. And the biggest decrease was in hunting unit 4A in the extreme southwest part of the state, where numbers were down, and we recorded record low fawn production there.
And why were the numbers down?
Yeah, so overall statewide we're up. Within that region in particular, numbers were down, and the fawn to doe ratio was down region-wide. And you gotta look back that the data that we collected in July is really reflective on what these animals have experienced the last 18 to 24 months with extreme drought conditions, poor rangeland conditions, does in poor body condition, lower reproductive potential. And then heading into April, we had those two historic blizzards that when those does would have been in their third trimester of their pregnancy would have been hit, which could have really had a toll on the reproductive performance that we observed this summer. And so the drought combined with those extreme blizzards in April, no big surprise that fawning was way down this summer.
Bruce, how about buck to doe ratios?
The buck to doe ratio has remained stable, and that's been the case for the last really 20 years, that buck to doe ratio is 35 bucks per 100 does. So that's a little bit above where we'd like to see it, with the objective of 30 bucks per 100 does prior to the season. So we're at a stable level of 35 bucks per 100 does.
Bruce, in our white-tailed deer population, we had a pretty massive outbreak of EHD last year. Does that affect pronghorns?
It does, and we did document losses from EHD in pronghorn this past fall. We actually did document losses, a single loss in an elk and even in a bighorn sheep. But I guess just to kind of coin Dr. Charlie, just meaning there's lots of virus in the area. So that can have an effect on adults in late summer and early fall, and we did document that. But it has also been shown that animals exposed to EHD the previous fall, the following summer, fawn production can be greatly reduced, and that's been seen in other states such as Wyoming. So there's no doubt that EHD probably had a component to the reduction in fawn production this year as well.
You said the last 18 months has kind of affected these animals. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of moisture. The grass is getting tall in some areas. The habitat is good. Mm-hmm. How is that going to be for pronghorns down the road?
Yeah, we're set up in really good shape. The pastures look great, crop fields, rangeland. The conditions couldn't be any better. So we're in a really good shape. And like we always talk about, we just can't have one of those extreme North Dakota winters. But yeah, certainly leading into next spring, we should have more residual cover from all the growth this summer. And then with adequate spring growth, the stage would be set for a much better fawning season next year.
Bruce, you mentioned the doe to fawn ratio is down, mm-hmm. but yet the license numbers are up.
Right.
Explain that a little bit.
Right. So within individual units, hunters will have to take a look. For instance, in 4A, licenses were reduced quite dramatically. Other units, the numbers were actually up, such as in the Badlands, hunting unit 1A, 1D, 2A, and 3B. And so there are some slight increases, and the same throughout the slope. Even though that fawn production was lower, And in those other regions, it was low, but not nearly as low as in western Bowman Management Region.
Right, so people just have to remember pronghorns are managed by unit.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Speaking of units, 2 new units this year, first time since 2009?
So all units west of the Missouri River will be open this year for the first time since 2009. And so we'll have Hunting Unit 9A, which is located east of Watford City, open, and then we'll have Hunting Unit 9C, which is located north of New Salem.
Explain how you do the surveys.
Right. So it's an aerial survey using a fixed wing aircraft, and we use a strip transect method, meaning the airplane is flying down the half-mile line, and then the biologist is counting and classifying animals 1/2 mile each side of the airplane. It's a huge effort. We conducted it with 5 different airplane teams from July 1 through July 11th. We classified over 8,700 animals, had over actually 200 hours of actual survey time. The number of groups that made up that 8,700 animals would have been about 1,700. And so it is a very large-scale, extensive survey that covers a lot of country to come up with our population estimate and then demographic rates.
Things are heading in the right direction for pronghorns.
They are. We seem to have broken out of the drought cycle. Habitat conditions are in much better shape today than they have been in a number of years. If we can, not have that extreme, severe winter coming up, that'll be a big plus. And then heading into the spring, we have the potential to really improve that fawn production, which could give the population a much needed bump again.
When is the application deadline for pronghorns, and how can people apply?
Yeah, so the application deadline is August 3rd, and then it's go online and apply electronically.
At gf.nd.gov.
Correct.
A lot of great information, Bruce. Thank you.
Thanks.